Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's reflection and meditation. The theme is seeing through the fog. And we can never spend too much time on all of these themes. They, sorry, I'm admitting people. These themes are worthy of a lifetime. Each theme is rich and powerful enough that if we were moved, we could take one of them and spend our life exploring what it means. So I hope that you're able to offer that context because in my ministry, while I may repeat themes, repeat quotes, repeat certain reflections, it's not redundant. It's just peeling it back a little bit more and a little bit more. And for this one, I wanted to start with a story. I'm going to read part of this story. I have recounted this awakening experience more than once over the years. I don't recount it all the time, but more than once. And I want to give you more verbiage around it. So, all right. It is the story of Eckhart Tolle when he was 29 years old and the awakening experience that he had. Until my 30th year, I lived in a state of almost continuous anxiety, interspersed with periods of suicidal depression. One night, not long after my 29th birthday, I woke up in the early hours with a feeling of absolute dread. I had woken up with such a feeling many times before, but this time it was more intense. The silence of the night, the vague outlines of the furniture in the dark room, the distant noise of a passing train. Everything felt so alien, so hostile, so utterly meaningless that it created in me a deep loathing of the world. The most loathsome thing of all, however, was my own existence. What was the point in continuing to live with this burden of misery? Why carry on with this continuous struggle? I could feel that a deep longing for annihilation, for non-existence, was now becoming much stronger than the instinctive desire to continue to live. I cannot live with myself any longer. This was the thought that kept repeating itself in my mind. Then suddenly, I became aware of what a peculiar thought it was. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with. Maybe, I thought, only one of them is real. I was so stunned by this strange realization that my mind stopped. I was fully conscious, but there were no more thoughts. Then I felt drawn into what seemed like a vortex of energy. It was a slow movement at first, and then accelerated. I was gripped by an intense fear, and my body began to shake. I heard the words, resist nothing, as if spoken inside my chest. I could feel myself being sucked into a void. It felt as if the void was inside myself rather than outside. Suddenly, there was no more fear, and I let myself fall into that void. I have no recollection of what happened after that. I was awakened by the chirping of a bird outside the window. I had never heard such a sound before. My eyes were still closed, and I saw the image of a precious diamond. Yes, if a diamond could still make a sound, that is what it would be like. I opened my eyes. The first light of dawn was filtering through the curtains. Without any thought, I felt, I knew that there was infinitely more to light than what we realize. That soft luminosity filtering through the curtains was love itself. Tears came into my eyes. I got up and walked around the room. I recognized the room, and yet I knew that I had never truly seen it before. Everything was fresh and pristine, as if it had just come into existence. I picked up things, a pencil, an empty bottle, marveling at the beauty and aliveness of it all. That day I walked around the city in utter amazement at the miracle of life on earth, as if I had just been born into this world. That is a very dramatic example of what happens when we resist nothing and fall into the uncertainty and the unknownness of life. And in a way, Eckhart was propelled by a certain faith, right? Because what is marvelous about this story was that the first step in the awakening was an unexpected realization. So he was completely identified with, I can't, I don't think I can live with myself any longer. I can't live with myself any longer. He was identified with that. And then out of nowhere, this realization came that it was as if he was two people and perhaps only one of them was real. And what's evocative and what is here for us, while there's so much to unpack with this story, is where do you think that realization came from? The mind was locked into rigidity because of his deep anxiety and depression. It did not come from his mind. Where did it come from? And whatever or wherever this source is of that realization, can we all trust it? Can each one of us trust it? A common response I'm sure Eckhart has gotten over his life, because I certainly have gotten it when I share some of my awakening experiences, is, well, maybe you're the lucky one, and we all don't get to experience these kinds of true realizations. But is that so? Or because if you investigate it, you come to a certain ground where it's you can't avoid the possibility that if it's true for one, it has to be true for all. If this inner propelling force of life that seeks life, that loves life, that's here for experiencing life is within us all, then the capacity for awakening is within us all. And the, the, the call and the fulfillment of the call are always active within us. What do you say about that? Because in life, we long for certainty. And certainty, because we seek it in ways that aren't worthy of that devotion and faith, it blocks us. It contracts us down. And we develop arguments around it. We wrestle with it. We measure how we're moving forward in our relationship with how we're moving through the uncertainty. We try to manage it. We try to manage ourselves, not just the uncertainty. So, in order to come to certainty within the uncertainty of our being and the uncertainty of the world, we have to really, really surrender. But surrender is not a something we can just will. We surrender even to the inability to surrender. We shore up strength through practices, through courage, through vulnerability, to get ready to prime the land. There's a lovely quote by Pema Chodron: to live fully is to be always in no man's land, to experience each moment as completely new and fresh. To live is to be willing to die over and over again. And then this is a quote by, it's called A Beautiful Life by Alexa. This woman, Alexa, I don't know her, but I love some of her quotes. She says, faith in the unknown begins when you stop demanding certainty and start trusting that life will meet you where your courage begins. When Eckhart moved from identification with the mind, and see, something led him in that realization to be open to it. His anxiety and depression were not so great that they had power over it, which I think is very encouraging for us, because he was literally in a state of anxiety and depression for years and years. He had built patterns that had reinforced this anguish and this dread over and over again. And there was something that could not be denied. His response to the realization, where was the power? The power was in the realization that came from within him. It was more powerful than the fear. This love cast out the fear. And what did it do? It led him to touch in on his natural curiosity. Well, if there's two of us, maybe only one of me is real. What happened is then in that moment, there was space. There was space. There was space that happened. And in that space, he experienced this vortex of energy that pulled him into void. It's interesting. The very considerations he had through his dread, through non-existence, through annihilation, through suicide, he surrendered actually into a void. Isn't that penetrating the paradox? So instead of taking his life, which would have been disassociating from the fullness of life and going into annihilation, he surrendered into the void, into the annihilation, in the way that led to the fullness of life. And he said it happened all within his very chest. There was a revealing of the I am. A revealing of the I am. If you know me well, you know that I love John of the Cross. And John is really a master when it comes to that all light is realized as we step into the darkness. But what he points out oftentimes through his poetry and through his writings is that apparent confusion is oftentimes a precursor to profound understanding. He says, the higher I wished to go, the lower and more abased I became, until I come to the point when I just gave up and then accomplished union with the beloved. I'm paraphrasing, came into the unknown, part of one of his poems. So, this confusion, this feeling like all is lost, is really going into it is oftentimes the way. It's the way. It's not what we work out in order to find the way, it is the way. How can you surrender into the way? Can you let go of the wrestling today, the analyzing, the searching to find perspective? I want to move into the practice. I was going to give a story from my own life that was not that dissimilar from Eckhart Tolle's, that led to the same awakening experience, but I'll save that for another time. So, for our contemplative practice today, we're going to simply take the phrase I am. We've done a breathing exercise like this before. And I'm going to use some beads. We won't do the entire set of beads, but beads sometimes they let us stay focused and grounded when we're holding something. We feel kind of a trance-like movement, but you don't have to do that. I'm doing it for you. You can just relax into the experience. And in this, it's because what was revealed within Eckhart Tolle was that he was the great I am. He discovered it, but not his mind had grown quiet. His mind enjoyed the fruit of the revelation. So, where was the revelation and what was the revelation? How did the realization happen? Because what came to his mind came from the awakening experience. And even his reflection upon it is a reflection, right? It's not a play by play, it's not his mind taking him there. Where do you let your mind take you? Let your mind take you. Could you today recognize that you are not your mind, just in little ways, over and over again, and step into the uncertainty? May this breathing into uncertainty, but breathing a phrase, I am, open you to the experience of being the I am. So I invite you to close your eyes. If you've not already done so, bring your focus to the breath. And invite in a large breath and hold. Contract the body, especially the base of the spine, the root. And release. Again, contract the body. Breathe in and hold. One last time. Breathe in. Hold. And on the next inhale, breathe I and exhale air. I 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 air. Continuing on the breath. I air. 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 We bring this practice to a close, drawing the palms together in front of the heart and opening the eyes with namaste. Namaste. Blessings, my friends. Have a great day.